recording also. Okay, fine. Now, see, all of you are there. Now, please tell me, how do you solve this type of a problem?
Sir, by simple bending theory, sir, m by I equal to E by I.
Yeah. So so this type of problem comes, what any engineer you follow, right? As you rightly mentioned. So we use our mechanics. Okay. So we use our mechanics based these approaches basically. Okay. So we write the equation of motion, and then you solve this equation of motion m by ei or whatever, some differential equation it will be. So you solve this type of equation, and then you find out the solution actually. Okay. So now the question comes, why do we require this probability theory at all? No. So already my mechanics and other things are perfectly fine. Why do we require this theory? No. Whether you really require this probability theory? No.
Where there are uncertainties involved, and we cannot use the proposed methods or the procedure that we have. At that time, we have to go beyond the stock mechanics and use probability.
Okay. So that is perfectly fine. So what I think Namita says is, I think uncertainties, right? So this is a word which I can hear from you. No. So uncertainties and all other things are there. Okay. So that's why you see, that's what you have given an answer actually. See, now that is perfectly fine. What you told is 100%, you see, correct itself. But in reality, so the simply supported beams, so this m is equal to ei, you followed, right? D square y by dx square or whatever you have written the equation, say. Do you think it is correct? See, this is our simple bending theory, whatever equations, whatever mechanics you have written, say. So are they correct?
So for small deflection, it will be correct.
So for small thing this also, like if I compare this with exact data, say, do you see exact match you will get, or how it happens? See, some of you would have done structural engineering laboratory course. So where you do this type of test, steel beam, you remember, plane sections remain plane. Some experiments we do in the lab. So whether this will give you an exact answer?
No, sir. In lab we will get higher result.
Yeah. So now what does it tells you? So your things, your approaches are correct, or something is missing? So in the lab also, you can apply the load actual. Okay, the loading you have seen in our structure labs. I think Namita and others would have seen this one. I don't know others, but so if you apply this load, say small load only, don't go to extreme loads or whatever. So like you see in a steel beam, we test plane sections remain plane. We put strain gauges and we measure deflections and others. So when you compare this with exact whatever analysis, whatever analytical results you have, you will get different. You will not get the same answers. So the question arises is whether this approach is correct or wrong actually, or what is that we are missing here, philosophically speaking. Yeah. So now whether our approaches are correct, we are approaching the problem correctly, or something we are missing for small loads only. No.
So we are missing means we are absorbing the exact behavior in the formula, means the plane section remains plane, but while in the actual thing it is not.
Then suppose if you use advanced solid mechanics, like you would have done advanced structural mechanics, no? Now Saravanan is teaching, previously we taught that exact things also, if you do, you will get same answer. You followed. See, whatever you have done, when you compare with experiments under small conditions or whatever, so whether they agree with the data or not, that is my question actually. So generally you told it doesn't agree, you will not get exact the answers. So now the question comes whether your approach is correct or not. So I'm talking more about the philosophy. Now one more question also I will ask you. When this mechanics started coming, this advanced structural mechanics or simple bending theories, when it was when this theories came into picture around some 1900 or something like that, right? 1900 or maybe, during that time this series got. Now, if you see our olden people say, like in 1500, 1400 AD or whatever, 1000 years back or something also, people were constructing actual, okay, huge temples you have seen, huge Taj Mahal you have seen. Do you think how did they build Taj Mahal? Whether what theory they have used? Like whatever temples are there, say, what was the procedure used to build all those things? No. See, if you see our older and ancient people, see the temples you followed, or whatever structures are there, say pyramids or whatever you can see. Our India, so many we have history actual. Okay, all these historical structures you followed, right? How did they build these structures? They used mechanics, or what did they use? No. Like Namita is there, no? So Puri you followed. We have that Konark and Puri Jagannath temple actually. So simple bending theory was used, or advanced structural mechanics was used?
It was not definitely the advanced mechanics.
So please tell me, I did not.
Sir, I mean, at that time the mechanics was the wheel so developed, so they would not have used advanced mechanics.
So what did they use then? How did they build?
And
Material
at
properties,
that
sir.
time, like
So what theory they have used? Like mechanics.
at that time,
If they don't know mechanics, then how can you build? No, nowadays if you don't know mechanics, you are not even a certified engineer, right? So in those days, what techniques they used? How did they build? What was the basis? What type of things they used?
they must have used the experience and the learning from existing structures. I think.
Okay, so one word what you can say is experience or whatever, or you can say, if you write in terms of, can I say empirical methods?
Yes, sir.
Something empirical, like you see, they would have done some testing randomly or something they would have done, and then you followed it, they would have built. So Namita is there, no? So Konark temple, Namita, you know that book, Baya Kakada, have you heard?
Sir, not the book, but I know the story of it.
Okay, no,
How
it's
it
not
was.
story. The Bayakakada is your Orison, the whole Konark temple is documented actually in that, all the wheels and everything. Okay. So anyway, so the olden things, if you, so now what great you are then. So whatever the advanced structural mechanics you have studied, say, so that is, so what does it tells you? So you are also constructing buildings, you are also doing. Without this series also, people constructed a huge temples, huge structures. Now they say, now, using this, we may not be able to build also. I don't know, you followed, right? So now also things are going. Olden days also people have built. In the olden days, as per your this one, right? So they would have used this type of experience or empirical, the methods itself. To build, these type of temples itself. Okay, so there are so many ways actually. So what does it tells you about your mechanics? Once again, we come back to this question. So finally, do you require mechanics to build structures, or without knowing mechanics also, without knowing simple bending theory, without knowing any of stress, strain, and all those concepts, can still I build successfully structures?
Sir, as per the recent like standards and design, I cannot tell those structures as the structures, because I mean, to some extent, because it will be like, if I start building these kind of structures, then it will be too much uneconomical, and at times I might be using higher factor of safety, and at times I don't know what is the whether the structure is safe.
No. Do you know
So
that
those
factor
are
of safety? They
the
know,
like,
your ancient people. Factor of safety, they know these concepts.
no, sir. But like,
They don't know
if
anything.
I
No?
compare the structures, like if I compare the recent structures, then I can say the factor of safety they would have used are much more compared to what we use.
Okay. What I'm trying to say is, so without knowing mechanics also, still you can build successfully temples. Temples are any structure, palace or whatever, the high quality structures, so you can still build, right? So what does it tells about your mechanics? Mechanics is not mandatory, you understand? So what does it tells out? So if you want to solve any problem in real life, say, okay, so your mechanics, whatever, I will make now a big bold statement. So whatever you have learned this mechanics, say, okay. Without mechanics also you can survive. Without mechanics also you can build whatever you like, okay, by empirical methods or gut feeling or whatever. So many things are there. So in real life structure, so mechanics is basically a guess actually. You followed. So whatever you have studied until now, say the mechanics, whatever you have done, I'm giving you like a bold statement. Mechanics is essentially a guess. That's all. So and anyway, whatever you have studied in mechanics, whatever theories you are going to do, that doesn't agree with the experiments. They may agree up to some extent or some small this one, but there will be a, you followed it 100%. Nothing compares. You followed 100% match with experiments into real life situation. Never happens actually. So now, so the statement is mechanics itself is a guess to a problem actually, to a real life problem. You followed. So what you, all of you are, including me also, all are civil engineers only, but what we are doing is, we are just doing guesses, that's all. So if I have a simply supported beam, so if I want to find out deflection, whatever the W, PL cube by 3 or WL followed it, that 5 times 5 by 384, whatever 40 ATI, whatever you have studied, say. So they are all guesses actually. You followed. So you have made a guess based on some theory or whatever, you have made a guess also. Even if you ask a mason in the field, or if you ask a fellow who is uneducated fellow also, if I show this and ask him that this much load, this one say, who will be, so like if I have a fellow, some fellow is there, say, he doesn't know even English, or he doesn't know any handwriting also, but he would have built 100 houses, say. So now if you ask him, his answer will be correct, or you are mechanics, you had used all your finite element softwares and you also will give some answer. Who will be close to the exact thing? That uneducated fellow, but he has built some 100 structures. But you are an educated person, knowing mechanics and knowing this one, who will give the exact answer? Now, who will be close to this one? Now.
The uneducated person.
Huh?
Uneducated person.
So, that you should not tell. If you tell, then why are you studying? You followed, right? So I expected that you will say, you will be the best. So anyway, you followed, right? So what I'm trying to point out is, whatever you have studied, mechanics is also just a guess actually to a real life problem. Maybe you can say it's maybe a best guess. That I don't deny that mechanics may be a best guess also. You followed, but you understand. One second. Hello. One minute. Is it fine? Fine only. Okay. So anyway, so what I'm trying to say, mechanics is also a guess, maybe a best guess you can say to a problem actually, compared to empirical method or whatever. So this you have to first of all sink it in your mind actually. So in real life situations, see, generally when I also teach mechanics courses, I teach that as though mechanics can solve any problem. But in reality, when you talk about a real life situation, mechanics is just a guess actually, best guess you can say. Not it is not the truth. So truth is something different. So you write some simple differential equations. M is equal to a d square y by dx square, or divergence of sigma plus this is equal to 0, and ask the beam to follow this equation. Say the beam will not follow. The beam will follow its own thing, which is unknown to you followed it anything. So this is the most important thing. You have to understand that whatever you have studied is maybe a best guess. That's nothing else. You have not solved the exact problem itself. So this you have to keep it in your mind actually before doing the course. So this is compulsory. Now the next thing is uncertain. Okay, like Namita, you followed it. She told, right? Uncertainties is there. Now, what do you mean by uncertainty? Can you define what do you mean by uncertainty? What does uncertainty tells you? Now, what do you mean by uncertainty? You see, can you define what is meant by uncertainty?
Sir, with respect to, for example, with respect to loading, when we assume certain loading, but then the real life loading can be different from what we have assumed. And
Sure,
similarly, like in case of material, we.
So what does it tells you?
Similarly,
So
like for
loading may
math.
be no, what you told is correct only, but I am can you quantify what do you mean by uncertainties actually? So suppose if I say load is uncertain, what does it tells me? So if I take any variables, a load or Young's modulus or whatever things are there, and if I say make a statement that load is uncertain, so what does it tells me? So load acting on this beam is uncertain. I have made a statement like that. So what does it tell me? What is the meaning of that one? Tell me. So don't feel anything you followed, right? You can openly, you can tell, no need to worry. So Vaibhav, you are there, right? So load is uncertain. If I say so load acting on this beam is uncertain. So what does it tells me?
Sir, it tells us that to get that actual load, there is a probability. Means it can be that it will be less than or it can be more than that load.
Okay. So anyway, you have gone into probability. We have not defined the probability yet. Okay. So anyway, so load you are saying. So uncertain means generally the definition is you followed, right? Several solutions actually, several possibilities. So this is how we define the uncertainties. So when I say load on this beam is uncertain, so that means load can be 100, load can be 200, load can be 300, load can be anything from 0 to infinity itself. So uncertainty generally we define as several possibilities. Suppose if I say load is certain, then what does it mean? Certain means opposite of this one.
Unique possibility means one
So
possibility.
unique, so, only one possibility. That means if the load on this beam can be 100, that's all only. So nothing else you followed. That is what we say certain. Certain means it is only one possibility, one value or one possibility will be there. So uncertain means you followed it opposite of this one, several possibilities actually. So this is the most the important thing. Now here, so uncertain means several solutions are possible. Several possibilities are several solutions also. Okay, and here I would like to mention that the most important thing you all should know, non-linear. So what do you mean by non-linearity? So if the problem is non-linear, say if it is a linear problem, so how many solutions will be there? So if it is a linear problem, how many solutions will be there for a linear problem?
One solution.
One, like y is equal to mx plus c, say. So how many roots are possible? There is only one solution. You followed. Now for a non-linear problem, so it may be a quadratic or it may be a cubic. Non-linear means anything which is not linear. 10th order polynomial or anything polynomial. So if the problem is non-linear, so how many solutions are possible?
Several, sir.
Yeah, several. So non-linear also means several solutions actually. Okay, several solutions are several possibilities. Now the question comes. Now what's the difference between uncertain and non-linear? Are they same or different? You followed. So there is a philosophically, this also one should understand. Uncertainty means also several solutions are possible. Non-linearity is also several solutions possible. So now the question is, are real life problems non-linear or uncertain? Or what's the difference between these two? Both of them look exactly same. The things are several only, but one should know this one itself. Okay, the difference between these two. Now suppose if I take a linear problem, say how many solutions are there? There is only one solution actually. Okay, but in the linear problem, if the load is like for example the same beam, say it is a linear only. You follow m is equal to a d square y by dx square or whatever. Suppose if the load is uncertain, although the problem is linear, but how many solutions are possible? See, like
Several
deflection
solutions.
is, PL cube by say some 6a or 3a or whatever we have say. Suppose if load is uncertain, although the problem is a linear problem, but if the load is uncertain, so how many deflections are possible? Now, how many deflections you will get if load is random or load is uncertain? No.
You can get many solutions, sir.
Many solutions. So what does it tells you? If the problem is linear, but if things are uncertain, say linear problem also can give rise to many solutions actually. You followed due to uncertainty. Okay. So anyway, so these are how, so this you have to understand. So philosophically, if you see, some people say that, you know, the real life situations are non-linear. That's why you get several solutions. So there is another school, people say that no, there is nothing like a non-linear. So whole world is linear only. But the whatever so many solutions you are finding, they are due to uncertainty, not due to non-linearity of the problem actually. Okay, so there are several physics you followed, right? There are so many things are there. So some people say the whole world is non-linear, that's why multiple, there is no uncertainty at all. But some people think that, you know, the world is linear, everything is simple only, but things are uncertain. That's why you will see many of these possibilities actually. Okay, so this is how there is like a clash. Some people say non-linearity can express everything, some people say uncertainty can express everything. So anyway, we will not go into the philosophical discussions, so we will be discussing about only uncertainty. Okay, so please understand, uncertain means several possibilities. Even a linear problem also can have multiple solutions because of the uncertainty. So this also you should understand the difference between uncertainty and then non-linearity also. Okay, now another thing also, where is the the most important thing say. Okay, another thing also you should see, where generally where do you see uncertainty in our lives? If you see, say, what is uncertain in your life, where do you see uncertainty in your life? So you forget about structures, you say, you talk about your own life, say, what things are uncertain in your life? So where is uncertainty, right? So what is uncertain? Where is uncertainty? Say, like for example, say if you take in your life, say like, what CGPA you are going to get in this course, is it uncertain or certain?
Uncertain.
No, but what CGPA you got after the course is completed, say, what CGPA you will get? See, once the grading has been done, like last semester course, you have done some finite element or something. What, see, uncertainty means several possibilities. You followed, right? This is a definition of uncertainty. Now, if I ask what CGPA or what grade you are going to get in the current course, say, you don't know, that is uncertain. You may get a S grade, or you may get a grade, B grade, C grade, or whatever this thing. But if I ask the same question after the semester, say, semester has ended, exams are over, now what grade you will get in, what grade you got in like last semester course, that is certain or uncertain?
Certain.
So what grade you got last semester? See, what grade you got last semester. So after the course has ended, whether you will get several grades or one grade you will get for each course.
So 1 grade.
One grade only. But now you are telling uncertainty, right? So where is uncertainty here? See, right now if I ask what grade you are going to get in this course, you don't know. That is uncertainty. But after the course has ended, say, then what grade you are going to get? You are going to get one grade or several grades? One grade only, right? It is certain. So where is uncertainty here? Now, where is uncertainty here? No. Now, where is uncertainty? See this example. This
Sir,
course
in the
is,
beginning, sir.
no, in the beginning, whatever you said, what does it tells you? Finally, you can make a statement. Future is and past. Which is uncertain? Which is certain?
Past is certain.
So like you say, after the exam has been conducted, so you will know, right, how many marks you are going to get. But future is uncertain. So where is uncertainty in lives, in our lives? Future or past?
Future.
The future.
So this is what So now let us say you have already constructed a building, say, then you know everything. But if you are going to construct in future, say, then so the problem is the uncertainty is you followed it in the future. Of course, past looks as though deterministic. Once you have written the exam, once you have got the grade, you will get only one answer only. So there is no uncertainty. But there also some amount of uncertainty will be there. Some people they call as randomness in disguise actually. Past is also a randomness in disguise. You can't observe because there is only one answer only. So randomness is there in our life in the past as a disguise. You cannot see the randomness because you are going to get only one answer, one this itself. But future, several possibilities are there. So your future is uncertain actually. Okay, so this is the most important thing. You see, one has to understand where the uncertainty comes, enters our the lives also. So future only is the most dangerous thing, and all of you are all are worried about future only. The past is the past you followed, right? Nobody cares about the past, but everybody looks in the future. And in a design also, we design structures. When you do the design, say your structures have to be safe in where? In the past or in the future? So you are going to construct a building, say. You want the structure to be safe where? Safety is anyway very important, but where it has to be safe?
Future.
In the future or
Future.
past? So this is the most important thing. So now what is the problem with future? Future is
Uncertain.
uncertain. So this is the biggest headache actually. So you have to design the structures which have to be safe in the next 50 years or in the next 100 years, which anyway it's very you yourself doesn't know. You followed it. So this is the most important problem we face. Okay. So this is the most another important thing also. Now another thing also, why nowadays this structure reliability or these probability courses have become very important. The reason is how do you like you see because of this insurance industry. Okay, so even in hazard, earthquake also we do this one. So generally we all know, right, our lives like your father, mother or your parents or you yourself, we all know that how many years we are going to survive actually followed because our future is uncertain. So what do we do? What do we do in our lives? Your parents or yourself say. Some of you, how do you cover risk in your life? So how do you cover risk? How do we cover risk?
Insurance.
Like we take
Insurance, sir.
Insurance. What does insurance policy does? See, suppose somebody takes insurance for 20 lakhs or 30 lakhs, say. So what does it tells you? Suppose anything happens to that person, say, what happens? The insurance company will pay back that amount is a family, so that monetary benefit and other things will come into picture actually. Okay, so risk insurance people, what they do is they want risk estimates essentially. Okay, to how to fix the premiums and others, they will have this risk estimates. So this risk they want. Suppose if you want to, like for example, say already we used to give examples, like you see 10,000 people in India. Okay, all of them they do insure themselves for 1 crore actually. Okay, and then all of them die in an earthquake. Now what who will be in loss? Say 10,000 people have taken insurance for 1 crore each actually, and let us say they have taken insurance and the next day earthquake occurred and they passed away. So who will be in loss?
Insurance company.
Insurance company has to pay 10,000 crores. It is a huge losses for them. So now this is for people actually. Even now you can do insurance for structures also. It is a mandatory. Many structures say you have to do insurance for your structure. So like you see, people are insuring their factories. A battery factory, this factory, chemical factory also. Like Reliance say they have insured their factory, Jamnagar and other refineries for some 10,000 or 20,000 crores. And if tomorrow something happens, say fire or some earthquake or whatever, and if the factory goes away, who will be in loss? Ambani or who will be in loss?
Insurance company, sir.
Insurance company will be in loss. So who is interested in this one? Who is interested in uncertainty? Who is more interested in risk? No, you are the insurance company.
Insurance company.
So now insurance companies, so nowadays design of buildings, say engineers are not that much interested. We do just like that and we go away. But who is more worried about the safety of building, engineer or insurance company? So who is more worried about safety?
The insurance company.
They are more interested in the you follow, right? They are, engineer is they are not interested. Engineers we design and then we close it. But risk who is going to suffer? These people only. You understand? So this so this you have to keep it in mind. So why this structure reliability or why this probability course is required? Say the first reason is whatever you have studied until now, whatever mechanics so great, so-called mechanics you have studied, whatever advanced solid mechanics or whatever you have done, say, finally at the end of the day, when you apply to a practical problem, it is just a guess, that's all. Okay, maybe it may be a best guess, I don't mind, but it is just a guess actually. Without that also people have built structures, people have done so many things itself. So this you have to understand. So that's why this probability theory is required. That's the first reason. And another thing is uncertainty. Okay, several possibilities also probability theory, but here please remember there is a clash between uncertainty and non-linearity. Okay, anyway, this also gives rise, but we are not interested in this one. We'll go ahead with this itself. And of course, several possibilities. And please remember, future is uncertain, but past is also uncertain. But it appears to be certain only, but it is something like randomness in disguise, we say. And of course, the future. And finally, who is more interested in structural reliability theory? Insurance companies actually. They are more interested, and now in India, many companies are the risk management, Switchery Insurance, Applied Insurance Research, you follow, right? Who does this type of study itself? Okay, so this you have to keep it in mind. So now you followed it. Now in uncertainty also, two things are there. This also one should understand. Okay, two types of uncertainty, they classify. One they call as aleatory. Okay, so aleatory uncertainty or aleatory variability also they call. Okay, and another one is epistemic uncertainty. Okay, so two types of uncertainties are there. Sometimes they also call as aleatory uncertainty also. Some textbooks, but generally to differentiate between aleatory and epistemic, they write aleatory variability and then this epistemic uncertainty. So these are defined like this. So aleatory variability, say. Okay. So this is defined as the inherent randomness in the system. Okay. So this we call as you follow, right? This aleatory variability. Now epistemic uncertainty, say. So this is what we call as you say lack of data, okay, or knowledge. So this is what you followed. Two types of the uncertainties are there actually. Okay. So like for example, this I will just give you one example, like tossing a coin. Now, so when you toss a coin, so what are the outcomes? Now, suppose if you are tossing a coin, so what will come? Whether it is uncertain or certain when you toss a coin.
Uncertainty, sir.
So now what are the how many possibilities are there?
Two, sir.
Yeah?
Two, sir.
So when you toss a coin, how many possibilities are there? What answers you may get?
Sir, it can be head or it can be tail.
Can so you can get a head or you can get a. So when you toss a coin, say how many possibilities are there? You can get head or you can get a tail actual. So two possibilities are there. Say like for example, I have done somebody, there is a fair coin, they say. So fair coin means whatever coins you are having, government gives, say the mass is equally distributed actual, okay, over entire coin itself. So that they call as a fair coin. Then there are also loaded coins also are there. So these are like, they use in gambling actually. So to cheat people, they use this in gambling. So what happens is in the whole coin, mass will be not be uniformly this one. Somewhere, they cheat the people actually. Okay. Now generally, if it is a fair coin, so what's the probability of getting head? No. All of you know, right? What's the probability of getting head and what's the probability of getting tail?
1/2.
1/2, all of you know, before doing the problem itself. Okay. And now, if it is a fair coin, say, because the mass is so, 1/2, a loaded coin means you will get 1/2, or what do we get?
Several
So it ought to be equal.
So in the loaded coin, see, the probability of getting head and tail means it is for a fair coin. That means mass is equally distributed. So in gambling, what they do to cheat people, you followed, right? They alter the masses and others. Okay. So now the probability of head, probability of tail, it will not be 1/2, 1/2. It may be something else because they may put more mass on the head side, to get more profits or something they try to do. So Lord, so let us say somebody has done tossed the coin 10 times actually. Okay. So they have tossed 10 times. So somebody has tossed the coin 10 times. They have got observed like this. Head, the first time head he got, second time also head he got, then tail he got, then head, then tail, then head, then head, then tail, then head actually. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times they have tossed the coin. Okay. And now what is the probability of getting head actually? What is the probability of getting head and what is the probability of getting tail? What's the probability of getting head without even doing the experiment, or what is the general probability of getting head? You don't know whether it is a fair coin or you don't know whether it is a loaded coin actually. What is your answer? No. Yeah, one solution is what's the probability of getting head? If it was a fair coin, say, what will be the probability?
1/2, 1/2.
1/2, 1/2. Without even you don't know what type of coin it is. You followed it, so you got 1/2, 1/2. Now suppose if it was a loaded coin, say then. See, suppose 1/2, 1/2. So now you have tossed the coin 10 times actually. So if it have done that, tossed the coin 10 times, if it was a fair coin, say, how many heads you should get?
5.
5 head and 5 tail. Now here, how many heads you have got?
7
sir.
hits.
So now what is the probability of getting head?
7, 8, 10.
Yeah, so approximately you followed, right? So you can say that head has come 7/10 and probability of tail is how much it is? 3/10 actually. So this came from your gut feeling or how many possibilities without even doing experiment. So this came from experiments actually. Now you don't know that fellow whether he has used a fair coin, you don't know whether he has used a loaded coin, you don't know. This is the answer. Now which is correct here? Half is correct or 7/10, 3/10? Which is the correct model? This is the first one, you will go with this one, or second one you will go with? Which is correct? Or how do you resolve this problem? Which is the correct one here? Half you will take, or 7/10, 3/10?
So
How
first
do we
one is
decide which
correct,
is
sir.
correct? Huh?
Because your
None of them
probability
is
of
correct.
head is higher in second case, but it should be equal.
No. If it is a loaded coin, you don't know, right, what type of a coin it is. If it was a loaded coin, say, cheating coins will be there. So now if it is a loaded coin, say, what will happen? The first one will be correct or second one? So suppose if the coin was a fair coin, say, which will be the right answer, first or second?
So first one.
Suppose if it is a loaded coin,
Second.
no, we don't know. So nobody has told you whether it is a fair coin or loaded coin. somebody has done the experiment 10 times, they have just given you the numbers. Now you have to choose the first model or the second model. So this type of uncertainty we call as epistemic uncertainty. Okay, so which is correct? So this is what we call as epistemic uncertainty. So you don't know fair or loaded, or you have no idea, but you have been given two models and you have been asked actually which is correct. So you cannot you followed, right? You don't know anything say about this one. So this type of uncertainty what you face in our lives, so this we call as epistemic uncertainty. Okay. Now aleatory variability. Let us say now how do we know which one is correct? How do we how to know that whether this somebody has given you only 10 results and then you have got these two models? If you want to know which is the correct one, so what is that you have to do?
You have to repeat
What is that
this
you have to do to say?
on. We
So if
have
you
to
want to
repeat this
differentiate these
experiment
two,
several times.
what? So please repeat. No.
Sir, I said we may have to repeat this experiment several times to come to a conclusion or to use a better model.
That is very excellent. Okay, so what is that you have to do? Now they have done 10 times. Suppose if you do 10 lakh times, say what happens? 10 lakh times they have done, say. So what happens if it was a fair coin and 10 lakhs? How much will be the heads? She would have done the test so many times, 10 lakh times or 1 crore times, say. Suppose if it was a loaded coin, so you will get 50-50, that is the answer. Suppose if it was a loaded coin, say, instead of a fair coin, then what will happen? Automatically, if that fellow has put mass irregular or something, so probability of head may be 0.6 or 0.7, tail may be 0.3, so then you can identify you followed, right, this one. So now this epistemic uncertainty, say, so this we call as a lack of data or knowledge. So if there is more data, so if you add more data, say, then the epistemic uncertainty can be reduced actually. You followed. So epistemic uncertainty can be reduced by adding more data. Now, what is meant by aleatory variability? Let us say you have done the experiment 1 crore times or 1 billion times, say. After doing 1 billion times, say, the next time when you are doing the experiment, say, can you tell what will come with confidence? So like you have tossed the coin 10 lakh times or 1 billion times, say. Now 1 billionth plus the next when you are doing experiment, what you will get? Can you predict? So you have tossed the coin 100 times. Okay, now you know all the answers. Now in the 101th trial, say, what you will get? Can you confidently tell what are you going to get? So you have large amounts of data, but using this data, can you predict essentially? So like in 101th time, only head will come. In 105th times, only tail will come. Can you tell confidentially with full confidence?
No.
Yeah, so
No,
that
sir.
is what. So you may have large amount of data, you may have lot of knowledge, everything will be there, but still you cannot predict what is going to come in the next moment itself. You followed. So that thing we call as the aleatory variability. You followed. So now among these two uncertainties, say which one can be reduced, aleatory or epistemic uncertainty?
Epistemic uncertainty.
Epistemic. How do you reduce epistemic uncertainty? You have to do the experiment. No. Yeah, you have to do the experiment how many times? More number of times actually. Then epistemic can be reduced. Now you would have done the experiment so many times also. Still, can you predict what is going to come in the next time?
No, sir.
So that is what we call as aleatory variable. So now our structural reliability or the probability theory is essentially related to aleatory variability. Okay, so how to quantify this? So that you are going to study in this course actually. Okay, so I will tell you one incident. Okay, now space shuttles, all of you know, right? US had 5 space shuttles, I think. Okay, Atlantis, Discovery, you know, right? That Kalpana Chawla, you know, I think one space shuttle, she passed away also. You followed. So now generally in the analysis, 5 space shuttles have been, US has used. Now all the engineers, I think, you know, NASA, whatever the people who built this space shuttle, they said that probability of failure of the space shuttle is 10 to the power of minus 13 actually. You remember this amount. So what does it tells you? So when the space shuttle is getting launched, so what is the probability of failure is 10 to the power of minus 13. So what does it tells you? Whether the space shuttles will fail or pass? See, the probability of failure is 10 to the power of minus 13. 10 to the power of minus 13 is almost close to 0 actual. So what does it tells you? Space shuttles can fail.
So it shouldn't have failed.
No, it will never fail. 10 to the power of minus 13 is close to 0. So they have done all analysis, but how many space shuttles failed? Almost out of 5, I think 3 or 2 has been failed actually. So now what's the probability of failure of the space shuttle? I think 2 by 5 or 3 by 5 or whatever it may be. You followed. So what I'm trying to say is they would have done a lot of tests. They would have done so many things, but still you cannot predict what is going to happen to the next launch of a space shuttle or something which you followed it. Very difficult to tell actually. So that's what we call as aleatory variable. You may have the best technology, you may have your best engineers, you may have whatever you have, but still you cannot predict what is going to happen, whether your structure is going to fail or succeed in the next future trial actually. So this is what we call as aleatory variability, and our structural reliability is essentially how to handle this aleatory variability actually. Okay, how to quantify. You cannot handle this, so if you cannot model this once, at least you should be able to quantify this actually. Okay, how much uncertainty is there, so that I will cover my risk with insurance. So that is the concept. You followed. So this is what we are going to do in this course. Epistemic uncertainty is a different issue. Okay, so this can be reduced by adding more and more amount of data, so automatically it can be done, but this cannot be handled actually. Okay, so this you know, you should, all of you followed, right? You please remember in this is the first class, so please remember these things as we proceed into the course itself. Okay, so I will stop here. We will continue in the next class. Of course, next class we will take full this itself. So we will okay. So if you have any questions, please ask me.